Well, Coasters, it's Bruce here, and well, we're in lockdown, and quite frankly, getting a bit bored. So decided to have a bit of a ring round, interview a few people about Three Waters and a few other subjects, and first one off the block for me is Allan Gibson. Allan, thanks so much for joining me. And how about introducing yourself to the people who are watching?
Thanks for asking me, Bruce, actually. I'm Allan Gibson. I'm Deputy Mayor of the Grey District Council, and this is my third term. And my portfolio for the Grey District Council is the Three Waters. So it really interests me what's going on.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And I mean, I've put a post out this morning suggesting that Three Waters has run into real trouble for government. There's over 30 mayors now who have said, look, this is not going to work. So,
well, Bruce, they can't just bulldoze this legislation through. I mean, they haven't asked anyone. It's like, we're going to do it, now we'll have the consultation. Totally wrong. I mean, the facts and figures have been wrong all the way through. I've got members of my constituent that have contributed to their own water schemes through the council and the health system, $12,000 each in some cases. They're not going to get it back. They're concerned what's going on. The local plumbers, the head of the local plumbers organisation, come and see me. He thinks he's really concerned about the loss of local knowledge, because they need to know when they do a job as well. And there's a really big unanswered point to the whole thing, is they will not tell us about the commercial side of it.
Yeah, there's probably a reason for that. Now, tell me, Allan, Grey District Council, do people have slime coming out of their showers when they go for a shower at night?
Insulting, those ads, aren't they, Bruce? Absolutely insulting. Jeez, I mean, they've forgot the uniqueness of a lot of the councils, the remoteness, and they never asked us how we were getting on. I mean, there's been standards to uphold all the way through the health system. There hasn't been a prosecution since 100 years, basically. But, I mean, we haven't done anything wrong. We've been complying with the services the same as Westland and everyone else. Why change it? Why take it all off us?
You're a community leader. Can you see how the proposed reforms will benefit your district?
Not at all. That's the loss of our local voice. The loss of some key staff. I mean, the engineers that do the water, but that's not their only job at the council. So you whip them away, someone's going to have to fill in. I mean, we're going to lose 41% of our income and asset base. How do you replace the people if you've got no money to pay for the staff?
You know, you can't help thinking that maybe the agenda is to get rid of councils.
Well, I am very concerned about that local council review that's going on at the moment. Even in that, it's more like the consultation comes last.
There's been
go Bruce. No, go Bruce.
There's been a bit of discussion about the regulator, and some people, probably including myself, think that having regulation for water makes sense. What's your view on that? Do you have a view?
Well, there's always been regulation for water. I mean, why change it? I mean, I'm very concerned. I mean, they based all this on a Scottish model, but they based it on 4,500 or 7,500 water schemes. I hear the other day they think there's now over 100,000 water schemes. So what do they know? They haven't asked.
The figures have been quite inconsistent, haven't they?
Oh, shocking. I mean, a private business couldn't base anything on their information.
I'm not sure what sort of feedback you're getting, Allan, up in your area, but there's a lot of talk about democracy here. And
the loss of democracy, Bruce, did you say?
Yeah, the loss of democracy.
Well, they've virtually mandated that we can't ask the people yet. I mean, how bad is that? That's just revolutionary stuff. It's terrible. Well, I mean, we've got to be able to ask.
you've got to be able to get feedback, don't you? And at the end of the day, I guess your people have paid for your assets over decades. And
well, as I said before, some of them were paid privately. They contributed to it. I mean, that's just not fair. You just can't have a country run like people like that. I mean, to hear the other day that Minister Mahuta was very unhappy that some of the maraes haven't got a very good drinking standard. Well, I'm sorry, but that is not the case in 90% of the towns. I mean, some of the councils are bent over backwards and cost the ratepayers a lot of money to implement the government policies we have had in the past. This new one, we will have no say in it.
Yeah, that would be. I think that's where most people are coming from. The loss of democracy, the concept of giving Grey District Council 8 cents in the dollar for the assets, taking them away. And I mean, there is no choice now. It will have to be confiscation, because it's quite clear to me, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it, but it's very clear to me that councils around the country are saying no way.
I think it's one of the biggest decisions, being on a council, that we would ever have to make. And I just couldn't say yes to anything like that. The people don't want it. The tradesmen don't want it. I feel sorry for all the staff around the country. They've been guaranteed their job on councils and water, but I do not believe it. I mean, overseas, they're based on a Scottish model, but overseas, I mean, all the other models have been sold to pension funds around the world, including Australia, Canada, the whole lot. They borrow money privately. They will want a return. It won't be free water. We'll have to pay through the nose with absolutely no say whatsoever. It's very undemocratic.
So, Allan, what does your council intend doing from here? Will you be engaging with your people?
Yes, we've already started advertising, but I think we'll follow your lead, Bruce, and have a proper referendum, whether the government calls it binding or not. It'll be the information we need to say yes or no, and I really think it'll be no.
It's going to be hard for councillors, unless they go out to the public, to be able to turn around and say, yes, we'll agree to transferring up to a third of our assets for 8 cents in the dollar. And they're going to go into a company that will charge they'll be the water supplier, and they're going to say, well, who's going to govern it? And we're told that we put all the assets into the company, the councils do, and then we get 50% of the say, and the other 50% goes to iwi, who have put in nothing. How does that work?
And what expertise have they got? How many water systems have they run? Yeah, I totally disagree. Everything should be on merit. You have the right people for the right job. I mean, the councils are doing a very good job now. And I understand that the new entity will regulate the suppliers. So if we want to do something, it'll have to go, the supplier applies to the entity. That'll make the Resource Management Act look like going to the pictures. It'll be absolutely terrible. It'll probably take years to get anything passed. I just don't agree with it. And I see the laboratories all have to come up with a certain degree of stuff within the next 3 years. What's wrong with the laboratories we've got now? Is the health department not good enough? I mean, they've done everything so far. If they haven't prosecuted, that's not our fault. Why should the people suffer for that?
Well, Allan, you've been around a wee while. How many of your mates have got crooked by drinking the water that Greymouth supplies?
No one that I've ever met.
No one that I've ever met in this one.
And that's the other thing they forget about our uniqueness. We haven't got a river on watch on the West Coast. I mean, we aren't the Canterbury Plains. We aren't the middle of the North Island, just has flowing mud they call a river. We have real clean water. It probably only spends a few hours in the river before it goes out to the sea. They've forgotten all that. They've totally overlooked everything, I reckon.
Most people away from the coast, and there's a lot of people with a connection to the coast who will be watching this series. Most of them don't realise you can drive from virtually the entire coast. You can drink water out of every river. It won't give you a bellyache. It's clean.
Yep. How can something that's as far as Auckland to Wellington be run by someone in Christchurch?
And better still, is that what we want?
Of course not.
No. Now, one of the things I am interested in, Alan, is that you go up through the Grey Valley and there's lots of farms that have more than one house on them. Now, according to what we've been informed, if you've got a house and you're supplying another house with water, you become a water supplier captured by the legislation. How's that going to impact people in the Grey Valley or farmers or?
And who's got to police it? The local councils. I mean, how crazy is that? I mean, we've got private water supplies in the Grey District now, in the Grey Valley. There's Nelson Creek and Ahara. They're owned by the communities. So I think they'll have to conform to the new rules, which would probably make it uneconomical. They put their own money in every year to keep the scheme running. No one's ever been sick. I mean, you'd be an idiot to put dirty water in your own water scheme, wouldn't you?
Well, you wouldn't do it.
No, and they expect the councils at their expense to police it in the future. I think it's totally back to front. I mean, when you get on the council, really you're accountable to the locals because they can come and see you. There'll be no accountability with this new entity. You wouldn't even know who they were. There'll be people you never heard of. They'll bring them in from overseas and we'll have not a clue what's going on. I disagree totally.
How much money did you get offered as a bribe at Grey District Council?
11.9 million for $241 million worth of assets. I worked it out, it's about $26,000 each per ratepayer.
Wow.
And I think if I put that out to the ratepayers, well, they'll either have their hand out or say no.
That's a hell of a deal for someone.
Yeah. Because remember the electricity reforms, we got a payout from Trustpower or Westpower, whoever it was at the time. I remember take the kids on holiday to Australia in 1999 or something. But they've legislated so this cannot be paid out. I don't think that's quite fair.
It's got
mind you, they've legislated against everything we do. West Coast story.
It is, but it's not just a West Coast story. The loss of democracy is something I really didn't have. I really didn't have an idea of just how people felt around the country until we started talking Three Waters. And now people around the country, like, you know, the splinter groups or the groups like Groundswell, Federated Farmers, you know, all the local groups are saying, hey, this bit of legislation is just not going to work.
Well, the SNAs and the fresh water stuff doesn't affect 90% of the people on the coast, does it? Oh, the farmer's got to pay for that. He's grizzling, you know, he's doing all right. But when it comes out of your tap and it's your rate bill, things change.
I'm forming the view very rapidly that the way to address some of these things is to have a public referendum on matters that we didn't know about. Like, we've got a government in place now, but we didn't know about the Hipurpur report. Never got released until afterwards. If there are matters that line up with that, like independent health authorities or whatever for Maori, then I believe that we should have a referendum, because many of our iwi partners are most unhappy with what's happening at present. They really are.
Well, it's a bit like the COVID thing. The vaccinations, they said that Maori and Pacifica are the most vulnerable. Well, they haven't got it. What about the rest of us? You know what I mean? It didn't happen what they said. They don't understand. They don't understand. And the local Maoris, we're lucky. We've got really good, they're local people, I call them. I don't call them any different to us. That's the difference with the West Coast, probably, Bruce.
Yeah, we have such a brilliant relationship, and in many ways, our councils and our communities are way ahead of other places in the country when it comes to relationships with iwi. We're just way ahead.
Oh, for sure, yeah. They're West Coasters. We are unique. The West Coast is unique, and It's about time they bloody recognised it. I mean,
Yes,
SNAs and wetlands, where do you start? Farewell Spit and go to Fiordland? I
no,
mean, it's all there. Why do we need to
you start by
recognise them?
the local council standing up and saying, without the support of the people, we can't do this.
Well, they put
Alan,
us there.
Well, yeah, I agree. Now, look, Alan, while I've got you, how's that Waidaha power scheme going?
Ah, really good. It's not many light bulbs coming running off it yet, but it's going to happen. Isn't that ridiculous? Politics shouldn't play a part in our well-being.
Now, you've been involved in the vehicle industry for many years. EVs, how are they going to work on the coast?
Well, for a start, they don't work in cold climates. They don't like hills. They don't like wet. They don't like puddles. And it's like having your battery-powered hand tool at home. You need 2 batteries to get the job done.
And are the batteries expensive? What does it cost? I mean, I haven't got an EV, but what does it cost?
Well, one we priced for a job was $31,000. So that was for a fully electric car. Some of the hybrid ones are now down to about 19. But really, if you bought a 2012 hybrid, by that time the battery's getting flat, you'd probably pay $15,000 for it. It's $19,000 for a battery.
Is
not worth anything.
Is that a fact? So the vehicle becomes virtually a write-off, does it?
I think we'll have the biggest electric car wrecking yards in the world. And the other thing is they are very dangerous after an accident. They have to be stored within 15 metres of any building, vehicle or person and monitored for up to 3 months because they just self-explode. And that information's gone out to all the fire brigades. I've been trained in that in the last few months because it is a danger.
Wow. Well,
I've been trained on the electric vehicle. I had to do it through Mitsubishi. Yep. The tools you have to buy are very special. Everything is very special. And don't say they won't be in an accident because they will be. They've got to be treated. They're not allowed to be towed. They have to go on a flatbed truck. And don't store them inside. They're now talking overseas of not even charging them inside a building because of the danger.
Well, we've all seen video footage of them bursting into flames, and I guess that's a fact of life, isn't it?
Yeah, a hybrid's okay. It's because it's got a petrol. You can plug it in and do 50 or 70 k's just on a battery. So if you want to drive around town, and if you want to go somewhere else, the petrol motor just runs it and charges the battery. They're all right, but still. When they first released one model of them, they released them in Holland. Do you know why? Because it's flat. And they got 1.5 litre per 100 k's. So then they released them in New Zealand, a certain model vehicle, and it was 5.5 litre per 100 k's. We haven't got the terrain.
Yeah, we're a bit hilly, aren't we?
Yeah. And well, apparently I hop off the train in Paris, and my brother-in-law was over there, and I changed into top gear and never changed down till I got to Italy.
Wow.
So that's a good example of what the roads are like.
Now, Alan, how's Greymouth going these days? You know, I've got a good feel up there. You know, I just want to wander around.
Yeah, it seems to be okay. I mean, it's really amazing the amount of people that have shifted here from out of town. Right. In my particular business, we would have 2 or 3 new customers a week. And they've come down, sold the Auckland house. You're probably getting the same in Hokitika, Bruce. They're really cashed up. They're ready to spend. It's really something for the coast. That's why all the houses are selling. And selling for good prices because they haven't got that price up there.
So your house market in Grey is pretty buoyant?
Yes.
What can you buy?
Look at Westport.
What can you buy a house?
Well, you can still buy a good house for $300,000 or $400,000. I mean, that's a real good house.
Wow.
There's still some bargains out there. I mean, I know someone that bought a house recently for $250,000, and they said in Auckland that house would be $1 million. That's a Dobson.
What about jobs?
There's plenty of jobs. There's not enough people.
Is it a real problem?
Well, it goes right back to them not training the apprentice years ago. I mean, the Mayor's Task Force has been amazing, the amount of people they've placed, and you've found it down there too. But It just shows you. But what were the government departments doing, Bruce?
Yeah, well, I guess they had I think perhaps they had their eye off the ball. You know,
but I mean, I applied for an auto electrician, just had ads in the paper. Recently, I got one fella rang up for an interview, never turned up. The other fella arrived with a piece of paper with 4 phone numbers on it, and he asked me what the airbag light was in the car he pulled up in. Well, that's an auto electrician's job, so we didn't interview him either. So the people out there, that's a true story.
yeah, Alan, Ocean Bounty features Greymouth again tonight on TV3 at 5 o'clock. And we've got, it looks like Craig Boot and a whole pile of Greymouth people in the processing and on the, what's the boat called? The Galatea, is it?
Galatea, yep. Fantastic. I mean, that's the biggest growth Greymouth's had in years is that port. I mean, it's a problem for the council with its debt, which goes back from years ago when there was an uninsured boat went down over the bar or a barge. But really, I mean, I'm terrified of a major earthquake or something. The port would be essential. We need that port. We're going to put some money into a new slipway and stuff shortly with a building on it, and it might attract people from out of town because it's so expensive to go on the slips anywhere else. And we want the port to grow.
I think the slipway project, which I think is PGF funded, isn't it? Or part of it is.
Yes.
I think that's just enormous for the coast. It really is.
Yeah, and there's other things in the pipeline to utilise the port for other, sending stuff out over the bar and stuff. Product, I can't tell you what it is, but it's looking quite exciting, I reckon. But really, that new development down the port has been really something for Greymouth. People forget how many people work there.
You've got to say that Craig Boot and Tallies are just brilliant supporters for the coast, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Craig Jones, that's on that program. He does a lot behind the scenes. He employs people. He's up with the ball, if you know what I mean. It's really something.
Yeah, and Penny and Amy Moore, of course. Amy's their daughter, and she's a bloody dynamo, Alan.
Yes, she is. We talked to her the other day, and we were concerned about slipway sizes and everything. And we were concerned about the smaller boat, because if it's all going to go to bigger boats like the Galatea and all them, we need to try and cater for it. But there's a really niche market for the smaller boats because they can target their species. So the smaller boats are going to be around for years to come, which I was really pleased about because that's the mum and dad and the crew, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of extra jobs here, which is extra maintenance.
I think tonight, Alan, we see Penny Jones, and she's Amy's mum. I think we see her filleting a fish again. And she's amazing. She's just she's quite brilliant. Now,
a family of them.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. Hey, now what's happening with the mining sector? How's your coal mining going? I keep telling people I love coal. Really,
they're an essential service at the moment, Bruce.
Well, they'd have to be.
Well, but not according to the government. Not normally.
There'd be a lot of hospitals.
The trucks and trains are still going past. It's really good.
What about gold mining in your area, Alan? You've got a lot of gold miners up the Grey Valley, haven't you?
There's a lot more we'd like to mine. We need that stewardship land, Bruce, don't we?
Well, we're plugging away at it, and look, governments come and go, Alan, and bad legislation can get turned around, and at the end of the day, the people have the power.
I hope so, because what future have we got otherwise, Bruce? If they're going to lock more land up, SNOs, wetlands, the whole lot, how's the farm going to grow? How are the guys that develop the farms going to have a job? How can they increase? See, one thing about the farmers that everyone forgets, which really annoys me, is the government throws all this legislation at them, legislation and things, climate change, the whole lot, but the farmers can't put their price up. So everything they do with a farmer directly affects them.
Comes straight off their bottom line.
Because they can't, like I've got a garage, so I can put my hourly rate up if the power goes up and everything. They can't do anything because their price is fixed.
Now
the government's really forgotten that.
Your timber industry is going well.
Actually, Ngāi Tahu are doing a very good job. They are doing a really good job. They're a wee bit pushy sometimes. Like I know areas that are being mined under Ngāi Tahu, but they want them to hurry up so they can plant them in trees to get the carbon credits.
Well,
they just need to be a wee bit more patient.
They're very professional, though, Alan. They really are.
Oh, they're good. They're good to deal with as well.
Yeah.
We've had a bit to do with them with the council. We've been trying to get them involved in a block of land we've got for obtaining carbon credits for the council.
Okay.
Not me, the council, but there's a bit of a hiccup with the legislation of when they were planted and when they were harvested. They might not be allowed to be claimed yet, but we're working on it.
Well, perhaps do they just join that big pile of 87% of native forest that we've got out there that doesn't have any carbon credits at all on it?
Isn't that bad?
Isn't it just bizarre?
That thing we went to the other day, Bruce, I think the local body people were quite surprised to hear all those sorts of stories. The rest of the country doesn't know, do they?
No, they don't. They don't, and it's really interesting. But well, look, Alan, I don't know. You're in lockdown. What are you doing next? I might go and give the garden another kick around with the shovel.
I've got a big shed out the back. I build cars in my spare time.
Do you really?
Yes.
I've got
a big workshop. Yeah, I've got cars everywhere. I've got all sorts. But it keeps my brain working as well.
Well, there we go, coasters. That's Allan Gibson. He's a Grey District Councillor, been around for years, a real coaster. There's no doubt about it. And right. Thank you, Alan, for sharing your views. And look, I'm going to have an afternoon on just the Waitaha Power Scheme during lockdown. I'd be delighted if you'd be able to be part of that. It'd be really good.
I would really enjoy that, Bruce. The whole Waitaha thing, the whole time it was going on, I was talking to Rob Caldwell all the way through because I was supporting it, if you know what I mean. So yeah. I got a bit of information about it all because it really upset me why they couldn't have it. It's really, it's a shocking thing. Shocking.
I'm very confident. It's only my own opinion, but there was a deal done there. There was a deal.
Oh, it had to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Arnold Valley Water Scheme, we've lost that now. The consent's expired. Yeah. Such a shame, but you know. And now they're running out of power. Ha ha.
Right, Alan, listen, enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for asking me, Bruce. I've really enjoyed it. Good on you, mate.